Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to do the Old Review Omnibus. Now you're probably like, what the hell is this? Well, I have lots of old reviews that I took down for various reasons a long time ago, and have just kind of been sitting on hard drives ever since. And so I thought I would make good use of these reviews and put them up in compilation videos. So this is kind of a new series, I think monthly, maybe sort of not, or whatever. It's just kind of content I have sitting around that I thought, maybe you guys would dig. Most of the reviews in this compilation are kind of how I used to do reviews, of like pictures all over here and like a trailer over here and all this nonsense. So that's what's going on with that. The other two are from when I made videos for the Rough Cuts, which was a review, kind of like a collab channel that I used to be a part of. Those reviews are still there, but I kind of think nobody's seen them. But there's a playlist on my channel called The Rough Cut Reviews. It has all of my Rough Cut reviews on that playlist. I'll probably be featuring them in these compilations as well, just because I kind of would like to make sure they're on my own thing, just in case, and all that stuff. You never know. And I feel like most of you haven't seen it, much like how NBC used to play the reruns in the summer. If you haven't seen it, it's new to you, I guess, sort of. The majority of this compilation is stuff that hasn't been online for several years, in fact. And their reviews, I still think they're pretty good, so hopefully you'll dig them as well. Everything from Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, which my review of Part 2 is still there, but Part 1 I took down. I Love You, Phillip Morris, The Way Back, not The Way, Way Back, which was a different movie, which I did review also, just The Way Back, which nobody remembers, and The Hereafter. Some of these are reviews for movies nobody cares about, and the two for the Rough Cuts is Witch's Brew, which is a movie by Chris LaMartina, who also did the WNUF Halloween special, which I have reviewed as well, and Wild, which has kind of an interesting backstory behind it. It's kind of the movie that DreamWorks actually ripped off and then made Madagascar, believe it or not, which is kind of bizarre since nobody even remembers The Wild. This is the Old Review Omnibus. I hope you enjoy it, I guess. It's kind of a different sort of thing, and if you ever wondered how my reviews started and what I used to be like in 2010 and 2011, this is a good preview of that. So I hope you enjoy, and here we go. Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today's film is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. This film is a lot different from all the other Harry Potter films. This isn't really a Hogwarts film. They don't really go to Hogwarts, really only on the way to Hogwarts, because Harry's on the run from Voldemort. A lot of this film is the kids by themselves. There's no teachers, adult mentors, or there's no kind of safe environment that there was at Hogwarts. This is kind of like the real world, and people can die. It's a definite departure for the other Harry Potter movies. I think it's a lot more violent. I think this is PG-13, I believe. I'm not sure. The darker tone really works for it. The problem I have with the David Yates directed films is before David Yates, a little more director driven. And as soon as David Yates came on, it feels very producer-driven, almost like a James Bond movie. That might work for James Bond, but for Harry Potter, I preferred kind of the director, like Alfonso Cuarón's Prisoner of Azkaban and Mike Newell's Goblet of Fire. I really have no sense of who David Yates is. I just don't get a real voice from him. I really like this film. I think this film's better than the other two Harry Potter films he's made. That's the one thing that holds me back with David Yates, is it just feels like the studio. And that's just the feel I get from the movie. I don't know what it's really like behind the scenes or nothing, but I think it's probably one of my more favorite films I've seen this year, at least. Focusing on Harry and Hermione was interesting. And they really kind of feel like they're by themselves. This is it. They're grown up. They have to figure this out. They're going to come and defeat Lord Voldemort. I have this overwhelming feeling like, are we really doing this? I don't know. It just shows a lot of growth from the characters, and I think the actors definitely pulled it off well. One thing that I thought was kind of funny about this film was all the shots that were obviously intended to be in 3D when they transferred it for 3D. Since this wasn't, you just have these shots where the snake's coming at you and this ghost is coming at you and stuff. So those parts I thought were kind of funny. There's not a lot of them, but the next one's in 3D, so watch out. I guess this is probably the most mature Harry Potter movie. The fight scenes and the battle scenes are so much more. You see people get really injured. Suddenly the threat of Voldemort, this myth, isn't just a myth anymore. They did this thing to Ron that looked horrifying. He was bleeding. There's all this blood. It was oh my god. When they would get really hurt, I was just so shocked. Ralph Fiennes, like, one of his better villain roles, but I never, like, when I watch it, he's so Voldemort-y. I kind of just think of him as Voldemort, you know? I don't think it's, like, that great of a performance, but maybe it's just the makeup. I don't know. Ralph Fiennes. Hi, my name's Ralph Fiennes. I like Harry Potter's better in the fall. In the summer, I mean, the movies are still the movies, whatever. It goes so much better with Thanksgiving. I don't know, it just feels more like kind of wintry to me. One thing I've kind of wondered is, would they release a long 5-hour cut of the entire thing as like one epic movie at one point? Or if it'll be like Kill Bill and it'll like never ever happen. If you have seen Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 and you would like to talk about it, comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to. You know, Buster, do you think it's at all strange that when the second movie came out nobody liked Dobby? And then suddenly dies and everybody acts like he's like their best friend? That's really telling about life, isn't it? And death. Hey, what's up, Rough Cuts? It's Jim. Today is Tuesday, and today's film is The Wild, a Disney film made in 2006. That's the movie that Madagascar is actually ripping off. It's weird because it came out later. DreamWorks and Disney have this history of DreamWorks ripping off Disney ideas and making them into movies and releasing them before the Disney one that was in production longer comes out. And they've been doing this for a long time. I think the first example is Ants and Bug's Life. Ants came out first, but A Bug's Life was in production first. Flushed Away and Ratatouille. Deep Impact was DreamWorks, and Armageddon was actually Touchstone, which is Disney. So they've had this history for a while. But what I think makes The Wild so different is there's never been a time where the Disney movie was absolutely crushed by the DreamWorks movie. The Wild had actually been in production since like the early 90s. The Wild had the idea first of, you know, these animals escaping the zoo and like getting their freedom and going into the wild. I like Janeane Garofalo as a voice in it, and her giraffe character looks alright. The character designs, like from far away, they look, and in some shots, they look kind of cool, but for majority of the shots, they look awful. There's a snake character whose the design is ripping off the snake from Jungle Book. Eddie Izzard plays a koala bear. He was a little too much sometimes. The humans never even spotted them out of the zoo, which was like unrealistic and fake. I mean, this is more like a fantasy than Madagascar. Even though Madagascar is a total fantasy, I feel like this is just so much more unbelievable. And this is a movie about talking animals. And they meet up with crocs in the sewer. This is a bad movie. And it's unfortunate for everyone who worked on it, especially if we worked on it for all those years, and just have Jeffrey Katzenberg come and like, you know, pull the rug out from under you, and then make Madagascar, and it makes a ton of money, and it gets to have a sequel, and you know, the star of all stars, David Schwimmer, is in it. I feel for everyone who worked on The Wild, but I'm sorry, your movie just isn't very good. You know, I think this shows that it doesn't matter, your core, your concept can be great or whatever, but it's execution that really matters, and the execution in this movie was just really not very good. It's a bad animated movie. You know, there's a reason this came out in like at a shit release date and opened in like 7th or something. Like, it bombed pretty hard. I guess I just saw this because of the Madagascar thing, and I always kind of just wondered about it. Maybe this is the one time I agree with Katzenberg doing that, because he actually made a better movie. I don't think in any of those examples, except I think Deep Impact was better than Armageddon. This was the one example where they really like made a far superior movie. I think the difference between the two was never so great as it was with The Wild and Madagascar. Madagascar's fun. It's not incredibly amazing, but it's at least fun enough and enjoyable. And this is not, like, this was just really bad. Like, I don't know. I mean, I got through it, but it was tough. I guess I'm just seeing this movie for meaningless trivia, which, that's my life, I guess. Thank you very much for watching, Rough Cut viewers. If you have seen The Wild, you can comment below in the comments, and subscribe to the Rough Cuts if you would like to. Subscribe to my main channel, which is in the info box below this video. Follow me on Twitter, Tumblr, and potentially VHX. And follow Earl Bear at Holloway's Tumblr as well. He did the drawing at the beginning and end of this video. And that's it. Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today's film is I Love You, Phillip Morris, which is a new film starring Jim Carrey and Ewan McGregor. This film is centered around Jim Carrey's character. It's told through his perspective. He's the narrator. And the narration is almost like the opposite of sex. It's very fun and lighthearted. I like that, and Jim Carrey can really pull that kind of thing off, especially in this film. And the early parts, they really let Jim Carrey go, and it works well for the character development because you're following the whole movie, obviously. In some places it looked like they just let the camera roll. They just do the scene, and then he'd stay in character and like keep going. And those parts were really entertaining. I really like that. This is almost probably one of his better comedic performances of this decade. It reminds me of the stuff he did in Liar Liar. It's really well rounded. There's a bit of camp, there's a bit of drama, there's a bit of comedy. Him and Ewan McGregor really walk this fine line where you could think these performances really suck, but they're really doing something like kind of interesting. And a lot of it's done in a lighthearted way, and really I think this is almost a good date movie. Anybody who'd see this be like, that was a good movie. You see this title's called I Love You, Phillip Morris. So you think like, if it's going to be called I Love You, Phillip Morris, there should be almost like an obsession quality to it that isn't quite there in the film. If I'm to take the title I Love You, Phillip Morris as some sort of a thesis statement, it would be incorrect for this film. It's a nice title, I have no problem with it. He does all this stuff for Phillip Morris and, you know, their boyfriends and all this stuff, but I don't feel like the character of Phillip Morris was so central to the film's plot that they would call it I Love You, Phillip Morris, you know? It's almost should be named after Jim Carrey's character instead of this other guy, but hey, you know, I think it's kind of a bad title for the film. People made a big deal over that they were gay and that the sexual content in this film or something, but really it's not like they don't like show, it's not pornographic or anything. They're very upfront about it, they talk about it, but most of it's off screen. There's no penetration or anything. It's not so controversial that you'd be shocked. I was kind of like, this is relatively tame. I guess because they're gay, that's about it. It's kind of lame. It's 2010, so what's up with that? I don't know. It reminds me of The Informant. I think The Informant's the better movie, but this is maybe the funner movie. It's very quirky and kind of indie, in the indie kind of hip way, you know. Sometimes it's a little too hip for its own good, but I think that somewhat works for it, so it doesn't entirely piss me off. The directors, I was looking them up, they used to write for Angry Beavers, so I don't know, read into that if you want. It kind of has a cartoony vibe to it, which is really why Jim Carrey works so well in this role, because Jim Carrey is like a walking cartoon character. Ewan McGregor is not bad at it either. It's one of the more interesting supporting roles I've seen this year. I saw Ewan McGregor in 2 films this year, this and Ghost Rider, and I think I actually like this performance more than Ghost Rider. I would like to see him do more kind of comedic, different kind of roles like this. He's pretty good at it. In a way, its hipness and all that stuff kind of reminds me of something like Youth in Revolt, or more so opposite of Sex, but these guys who wrote like Cats and Dogs and Angry Beavers made this kind of movie, and it's interesting how their sillier style works with I Love You, Phillip Morris. If you like animation and cartoons and stuff, you probably dig this film. The directors have a different approach than you'd expect than most regular dramatic directors would have. And there's no filler, it all worked perfectly. I'm not crazy about it, there's better movies, but this is definitely good. So if you have seen I Love You, Phillip Morris and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments down there, and subscribe if you would like to. Hey, what's up? It's Tuesday. I'm Jim here for the Rough Cuts, and today I will be reviewing the film Witch's Brew. Sorry I wasn't here last week. I was actually sick, so it's the only one I've ever missed. So Witch's Brew is about these 2 guys. They make their own beer called Slacker Lager, and they run over a cat who is actually a witch who can turn into a cat. So they bring it back to the house because they're nice enough guys. I mean, not nice enough not to run over a cat, but nice. Well, it was an accident. I mean, I'll give it to them. But they bring it back. The witch gets all upset, and they have their Slacker Lager in the backseat of their car, which they're going to make deliveries to various clubs and liquor stores. And the witch puts a curse on the beer, and so anyone who drinks the beer reaches kind of an ironic fate or has their face melt off or something. There are 2 reasons I reviewed this movie. One, I kind of know the director. I guess we're friends. We're at least Facebook friends. We're kind of friendly, you know, and I always wanted to review it, and I was like, hey, could I get a copy? And he gave me one, and that was really nice of him. The second reason is because Sean C. Phillips is in this movie.
He plays this guy who drinks some slacker lager, and he's gonna have sex with this chick, and then he just eats her because, you know, he's fat, and fat people eat a lot. So, you know, no offense to him or anything. I mean, I think he noted the irony when he did it. I actually thought he was alright. And various people have various fates. Like, one guy turns into a werewolf. Some people just, like, their skin melts off and, like, that's it. One guy has, like, all his intestines come out his butt when he's taking a dump. There's this one guy who picks his nose a lot and puts his boogers on the, it's this cop, and he puts his boogers on the back of his, like, clipboard, and, like, boogers, like, eat him, and for some reason, I don't know what it is about this movie, but transformation stuff for me, like, ever since I was a kid and that scene in Pinocchio, it kind of freaks me out, and this movie, I don't know if it freaked me out, it didn't really freak me out, but it definitely grossed me out to the point where I, was kind of not letting myself throw up for a while, and then I kind of threw up because it grossed me out. That doesn't really happen very often, that I'm so disgusted by a film that I, like, vomit, which I think is kind of an accomplishment, because I don't really throw up at that many movies, like Pink Flamingos and this. I don't know if this movie is necessarily disgusting, or it's just like, it just hit me in a sort of, like, disgusting weak spot I have. But it totally made me get grossed out. And I tried to not throw up for, like, a while. And then I was like, well, this is pointless. Some of these are, like, actually ironic, such as Sean C. Phillips' character, or the booger guy who I don't want to bring up. The werewolf guy, I guess that's kind of ironic because he was, like, losing his hair. And he has, like, lots of hair, maybe. But some of it kind of just felt like, you know, on Nightmare on Elm Street, some of the times, it's, like, super ironic and personal to that character, and other times, like, hey, let's have this lady turn into a roach, and then for, like, no reason. Wouldn't that be cool? And that's never really bothered me as a viewer. I'm always like, hey, that looks cool, I'm gonna go with it. I've seen a couple of those, you know, horror movies they play on Chiller that are, like, not that great. Stuff like that is, like, really dull, and then you're like, it's like you're watching a modern remake of The Killer Shrews. It has so many different things going on with the slacker lager that's been cursed, and they have so many different locations to go to, it never really gets dull. You know, I never got bored with Witch's Brew at all. In a typical lower budget horror movie, you just have them, like, talking about, like, oh, we're so fucked all the time. And although there is talk of them being so fucked, they're more proactive characters. If you like horror movies, I actually recommend this. And even if you kind of go, oh, I don't know, I'm not into the lower budget horror, I actually think this would be a good one to check out. And bonus, it totally grossed me out. And that never happens. I can see Cannibal Holocaust and watch a turtle get ripped in two, and that was pretty horrific. But for some reason, I mean, it's not, I don't know, maybe it's just me, you know, that threw up. But I got totally grossed out, and I don't, oh God, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about it. So I don't know if I'll ever see this again, but I definitely think it's a good movie. So if you have seen Witch's Brew and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments. Subscribe to The Rough Cuts if you haven't already. Subscribe to my main channel, which is in the info box below. Follow me on Twitter, Tumblr, and potentially VHX, and follow Earl Bear Holloway's Tumblr, who does the picture at the beginning and the end of this video. And thank you very much. He's still a little sick. Snot just doesn't go away. Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film, The Way Back, which is directed by Peter Weir. What The Way Back is about is a group of guys in a Siberian prison. Most of the prisoners, I think, are from Poland, escape, and then try to walk to a country that does not have communism in it, so they walk all the way to India. This is a great plot. It's apparently based on a true story. The plot of it works well enough that it kind of keeps you interested. However, the way they decide to develop characters is pretty bad. They get to points, and you think, oh, well, this is going to be close to the end, maybe, and then they're like, no, we have a bunch of more shit to walk through. And when they're walking, they kind of ran out of good shots because they kept like, let's shoot them all walking in a line and they're walking towards the camera. Let's do one from the side where they're in shadow because the sun's going down. They kept doing those shots and it was like honestly kind of annoying and dull. It's like, how many times can I see people walking in a big wide shot? Some of the shots in this film, I was like, whoa, that is really well framed and really amazing, and it would make a really nice desktop background. I got a little sleepy just because like I didn't know these characters well enough. In the Siberian prison, I didn't really get to know Ed Harris that well. I didn't get to know Colin Farrell's character well enough. And those are probably the best two performances in the whole thing, but that couldn't really elevate it. I felt like we really need to be introduced to these characters better. And if you look at another escape film like The Great Escape, you really know all those people. And in this, it's like, there's a funny guy. Ed Harris is probably more of a fleshed out character, but like the guy who's the leader, like someone's like, oh, you like being a leader? It kind of spells stuff out sometimes, and in a way that just doesn't help it. There are tons of times where they had a big moment and they just wouldn't film it very well. It just seemed to me like they kind of lazily put it together. It just didn't feel like they had fun with it. They made it somewhat effectively. If someone said this was good, I wouldn't fight them on it. I wouldn't be totally offended. I didn't connect with these characters. And this is a film about characters. The people who escaped from the Siberian prison, I didn't know a lot of them until they got out of the prison. Just like, I kind of feel like if you're gonna make a film about escaping from somewhere, you need to know the people before you escape. You can't be like, oh, they escaped, aren't you interested? It's like, yeah, well, who the fuck are these people who escaped? We're like, don't worry about it, we'll tell you. I still think Peter Weir has done some good movies, and I would recommend maybe you saw The Year of Living Dangerously instead of this. It's an alright adventure movie. I definitely think this is decent, and of the films I have seen in 2011 in theaters, this is probably my favorite. Not saying much, really. If you have seen The Way Back and you'd like to talk about it, then comment below, and subscribe if you would like to.
Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film Hereafter, which is directed by Clint Eastwood and stars Matt Damon and a bunch of other people. The concept of somebody with like this extraordinary gift in these films like Phenomenon, Powder, and I think there was one of Skeet Ulrich, which I never saw. Clint Eastwood's direction really works well with this story, and it might be the best one of those people with special powers movies. There are some like reservations I have about the end, but nothing pissed me off about this movie. It's good, yeah, it worked, but I don't feel like, yeah, oh my god, it's just kind of like, yeah, I respect the fact that they didn't really totally suck it up, because let's be honest, a movie about a psychic is pretty stupid. And especially after that South Park episode, the way they do it really works for the film and for the story and kind of keeps it a little more grounded in a nice way that I definitely like. You have three storylines going on at once. Matt Damon, who's the reluctant psychic. You have a English boy who his other twin dies, so he wants to connect with the dead. And also this French news reporter, and she gets caught in a tsunami, has a near-death experience, and believes in the hereafter, as they say. Having these three different storylines was, you know, it's alright. I didn't love it or anything. I kind of liked the Matt Damon storyline, the little English boy, a little bit more, and I felt like they were more part of one movie, and almost the French news reporter lady, she was like this other storyline that they weren't filmed the same way. I feel like the attitudes were, but just the cinematography I felt was really different in a lot of her scenes, and almost didn't connect with the other two for me. It felt like they should have all been the same. I just didn't really get why that was. It didn't make me go, oh, that's really intelligent because you're showing the differences in their character. But it didn't seem like that's what he was doing. So a little confusion on the consistency of how that was shot. Now, this movie walks a really fine line between like me groaning in the theater, me going like, oh, okay. Eastwood for me is somewhere between some guy who directs Law and Order episodes and like some really good director. I just don't think he's like that crazy amazing. Matt Damon does a pretty good kind of quieter performance. It's not one of my more favorite Matt Damon roles or anything, but he does an alright job. The English kid kind of sucked, but he did well with what they were doing. And the French lady was, you know, that's the other thing. I wasn't really crazy about any of the French actors either. Like, aren't there good actors in France? I mean, they didn't suck, but like, for sure press like, oh, that was good. And then others, I was like, couldn't we have added some personality, you know? Bryce Dallas Howard, I think that's how you say her name, whatever. I always hear about how she's a great actress. I have yet to see her actually be great in anything, so I'm always kind of surprised when people say that. But I actually think her role in this is the best I've ever seen her in any movie. I thought she was actually really good. But I don't see why I doubt her when she has a filmography like Spider-Man 3, Terminator Salvation, The Village, and Lady in the Water. Oh, also Twilight Eclipse. I'm not saying like nominated her for an Oscar, but she was good, you know. A lot of people have said that this film is almost like a part of a 3-hour film. There's a part where she is messing up on her news report, but you've never seen her be this amazing news reporter. You know she has that reputation, you see signs and stuff, and that's fine. They do get that message kind of across. When they have that scene, it almost feels like a scene that is referring to another scene that people be like, oh, that's really smart. But we didn't get the first part, so sometimes I felt like this film needed more time to explain things, and other times I felt like there was stuff that should have been cut out. So it's really, I did like it, I just am not crazy about it. If you want to see this, hey, see it, because it's good. But if you don't want to see this, you know, there's better stuff you should be seeing, you know. I mean, if you've seen all the better stuff and you have a lot of disposable income, hey, it's worth a shot. I don't know. Alright, so if you have seen this film and you'd like to talk about it, then comment below, down there, where the comments are, and subscribe if you would like to. Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I need some water. So thank you very much for watching the Old Review Omnibus. The next review will not be a compilation of a bunch of old crap that I found on drives or whatever. So thank you for tolerating this, or maybe even enjoying it. Maybe that happened too. I don't know. Hopefully. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and subscribe if you would like to.